like you said, it has to be
It's
something
my
that I
fault.
did.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my fault. Nothing warrants somebody treating you badly.
Punching
Nothing
you in
warrants
your
that.
face and giving you a black eye.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking of any sort of race. I'm speaking of a color. If it's white, it's not right. Right? That part. So white bread. If this was you, if this was me calling you, one, are you gonna answer the phone? And then after you answer the phone, are you gonna show up?
And then it gave a parameter, amen, on how I need to love her.
Talk about that.
He says Christ loved the church.
He gave his life.
That man up. When that man walks through the door, just tell him, man, look at my man. Come in and give us your fine self. You pushing that man and more.
This is when you know you're dealing with trauma in a light way. You get an envelope in the mailbox, you don't open it, you avoid it. Being avoidant.
To them.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And for women, I tell women all the time, you can't love that man past his pain. You can't. And I hear it a lot. Oh, he just never had anybody to really love him, and and he didn't have anybody there for them, so I'm going to be there for him, and all of that. You cannot love him past his pain. And it's so unfortunate because it's the one that's there that usually gets it. They're the one who they're on the opposite end of the abusive person's power and control. They're the one who's going to get it all. That most of the time we see that when a person is abused, or the abuser is abusing, it's because they have first been a victim themselves. They were once abused. And so they may not be able to get back or what have you with the person who abused them. So they pass it along. And it's usually with the person who's closest to them, unfortunately, that gets it. They're the one who is now the victim, is the one who's there for the abuser, trying to make it work, trying to be there for them, trying to love him through his pain, or her, or whoever it is that's the abuser. And you're putting yourself in harm's way. So,
wow.
Yeah, but it starts out psychologically. And the abuser is initially very charismatic.
Very charming,
charismatic.
Probably, like you said, said last episode, the knight in shining armor.
Yep, exactly. And then they slowly start, chipping away at your esteem. They slowly start wearing you down, to have that power and control over you. Then they start saying things about how you look, or what you're wearing, or where you're going, and all of that, who you're talking to and for how long, and all of that. It starts out very subtle, but it's not just physical. So that is one of the myths as well. And then my third myth is domestic violence only happens when a person files out of line. In other words, when they do something wrong, when they don't measure up to the expectations of the other person, and that's when domestic violence occurs. That's not true. That's not true at all. I don't have to do something wrong in order for domestic violence to occur. If that person who's the abuser wants to abuse, it doesn't mean that I've done something to promote that or provoke that. I don't have to promote a vote or none of that, for a person to abuse me. That's like saying I'm at fault.
And better yet, how about this? Even if I did do something, it doesn't warrant you to put your hands on me or treat me bad.
Exactly.
And that's in that same category of, it don't matter what I'm wearing. It don't give you the right to sexually assault me, period.
Yes, exactly. And, for me, when I did say something, and God knows, my mom loved me. I love my mom. My mom just didn't know what she didn't know. And I had mentioned it for the first time to my mom. This was years ago. And I'm only saying this to bring awareness, not to shame, blame my mom. My mom is now gone, but I know she loved me, but she didn't know what she didn't know. And she didn't know how to help me in that moment. But I mentioned it to my mom, and the first thing she said was, "What did you do to provoke that man?" And
Miss Diane,
that you don't have to be someone who provokes a person in order for that to occur. I could have done, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect or was perfect, not at all. But it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't mean that someone have provoked them in order for it to happen. Not at all.
Oh, you know what, Miss Diane? Remember that movie? I don't know if you ever saw that movie called Surviving Compton.
Mm-mm.
Okay, do you remember the artist Miss Chalet?
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Remember how it? Did you see that movie?
I did. I don't remember all the parts too, but I did see it when it aired.
Okay, let me tell you. I don't know if you recall, but it was a part in the beginning where she was going back in her past and talking about how she had seen her mother and her grandmother get abused. So I don't know if it's that she's seen it necessarily, or she did see her mother, but she also know that her grandmother was abused. And one of the things, theirs was more physical abuse, but Miss Chalet went through all of it. But one of the things that she said was that her grandmother did tell her it is normal for a man to beat on a woman. So unfortunately, she had already set her up for failure, because by the time Dr. Dre, they were in a very intense relationship. It started off intense, and it always do with abusive people for whatever odd reason. She was in this relationship with him, and the first time that he put his hands on her, she remembered thinking, this is normal. Yeah. Because this is what my mom went through. This is what my grandma went through. And so even in listening to that statement that you said about your mom, it makes me wonder, like, we got to watch what we teach our kids or what we tell our kids, because it's a learned behavior. You see what I'm saying? Even you saying, what did you do to provoke her? It's almost like you said, it has to be something that fault. I did. It's not my fault. Nothing warrants somebody treating you badly. Nothing
punching you in your face and giving you a black eye. Yeah.
Nothing, but it lets you know. I hate to say this, but it lets us know what women in the African American community are brought up on, which is survival. It almost has the connotation of, this is what you deserve. Yep. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Or like, we don't deserve more than survival love. Right. So every relationship we in, we have to be taught to survive. And that's not fair. But I'm done.
That's a whole word right there. I mean, truthfully, that's a whole word right there. Yeah, survival love.
That's what but if you notice, how many women, more women than not, do you notice in the African American community have to earn their stripes for love? Yeah. After you cheated on me, went to jail, used up all my good years, beat me,
then whatever they go outside the culture and treat the next one good.
But I gotta just be okay with what I get.
Yep. Exactly.
But I'm done.
I know. We can go there. I know. We can go there.
We can go there, because it is the truth. Like, as from one Black woman to all the rest of us, we're tired of taking crumbs. Like, right. You're not going to keep making me survive. Like, I deserve to be treated with respect just because I'm a woman. And Black women stand by Black men. I don't care what nobody says. We are loyal through and through.
Yes, absolutely. But I want to thrive, not just survive.
Me, I don't want to get the best. Look, the best part of you after you sick or after you need me, now I gotta now I get the best part of you, but all of my youth and my good years have been wasted up because I've had to. Anyways, I'm listening, Miss Diane.
Yes, I'm with you. And so fourth one is the myth is that it should be obvious It should be an obvious decision to leave the relationship when abuse is present. That is obvious.
That's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true. That's just like saying, like, okay, well then that it should be obvious to leave a man after he cheat on you then.
Right. Exactly. But it's not that obvious because it's so many different factors. It's so many different variables, to the scenario for some, kids, finances. I mean, so many different things, and then sometimes too, the situation can become more dangerous for that person toward the end when they're trying to leave. Excuse me. It can become more dangerous.
At my God, Miss Diane.
Yeah.
My God.
And it's not an obvious like, oh, he or she is abusing you. Just leave. It's scary for women or men or what have you that rely on their partner for finances, for shelter or whatever it is. It could be very scary and frightening, especially for women who, if their partner never allowed them to work, or they don't have a degree to be able to get a job, they've never worked outside the home before, and they don't have the skill set or the education to move forward. That's a scary thought. Leave. What am I supposed to do, and where am I going to go? The abuser has already isolated that person from their supports. Family members have now talked about that person and say, well, she must like it and she's going to stay. And so now they have ostracized that individual. And I'm talking about real life situations, people that I know that this has happened. And
wait a minute. Where am I going to go? They ostracize their family members?
Yeah. Oh, she's stupid. She's deciding to stay with them. So, oh, well, she get what she deserves.
Whatever. Go ahead. I came with the foolery because you know what, Miss Diane, how about this? Talk about the women. Remember that song by Eve, Love is Blind, and it'll take over your mind. What you think is love is truly not. If you look at that video, he killed her.
And that's something
that happens more than we think, though. What about this, though, Miss Diane? What about the fact that they have isolated homes for women after you talked about this in the podcast, after they leave a domestic violence situation, they have to have isolated homes, right? Yep. Because abusers oftentimes go after the victim.
Yeah.
Okay, it's so many movies that display this. Enough, the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez is a thin line between love and hate with Martin Lawrence. You see what I'm saying? So
and she was the abuser.
She was the abuser. She abused him. And so I said all of that to say, it could be a dangerous situation to just leave.
Yeah.
A situation like that.
It can be very complex, a very complex situation. And we should not put that pressure on the victim and, making comments to her such as, I don't know why you're still around. I don't know why you're still there and you should just leave. And instead just support, be there for that person as they need you to be. Let them tell you what you can do for them, and you just offer the help and that assistance. But, especially if two people are married, then it becomes all the more complex because now, both persons' names are on everything or whatever the case may be. It's a lot more complex. And so I would encourage for that individual to make a plan. If anybody is listening, right now that are in such a situation, domestic violence situation, and you feel that there's no way out, God always makes an escape, for you. He always provides that way of escape. But I would say that we need to plan it because it can be a dangerous situation. If you find yourself, having to just leave, in the middle of the night or what have you, I would hope that, you would have gotten copies of, and I don't know if we had mentioned that in the last one, or if that
No,
was
we
something that
didn't.
wasn't, and I'm going to go through
Mm-mm.
that too, and things that we could do to try to help someone, is being that support system, allowing them to leave copies of important documents at your home.
You did say this. I'm sorry. You did.
Mhm. Yep, yep, and allow them to your home to be a safe space for them. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can help them make a plan, such as meeting that person at the corner, having a code word or what have you, so that that it's time for them. They are about to run, and you can help them. For their person that is the victim of abuse, make copies of the children's, shot records, birth certificates, social security cards, and your own, and all of that, another set of keys, the car, the
Mm.
house, what have you, all the important documents, driver's license, and all of that. If you aren't able to retrieve or take those items when you leave, if you happen to be in a situation where you got to leave right away, or just don't have the time to go back and get it, or whatever the case may be, you will want copies elsewhere, so that
Mm.
when you're gone, you can move on a lot easier, having those items at your fingertips.
Transition out. So I
Mhm.
have a question, Miss Diane. I do. What about the financial component? Because some women, or men, they unfortunately don't have the finances to leave. Do
Mhm.
you have any tips for that by chance? I'm just wondering.
If you don't have finances to leave, prayerfully you got a church family, or you got
Mm-hmm.
friends or coworkers, or someone that would help you,
Mm-hmm.
temporary help, and then also there are some places in the community that you can go to for help as well, in which I will provide that information at the end of the um, podcast.
That would be great. So,
Mhm.
Miss Diane, okay, who child, you done gave my God. So that was number 4. What's number 5?
Okay, so number 5 is wanting to be a savior for those
Mm,
individuals that, it's a myth that you can save them.
mm,
That's a myth that I'm staying because, like we talked about at the beginning, no one else has ever been there for him. Everyone in his life has left him, his mom, his dad,
mm,
or what have you. I'm not going to leave him. I'm staying.
mm.
I'm not going to be that other person, that extra person that leaves him. And so, although I understand that he's unhealthy right now, I'm just going to nurse him back to health. And you cannot save that person if they don't choose to be saved.
Save.
First, they have to even recognize that they need help.
That
How
needs
can
saving.
you can't change occurs through awareness. And if that person isn't aware that they need changing, then change is not going to happen. Because
And you know
remember,
what?
they
You know
blaming
what,
you
Miss?
for it all.
Right. And the thing about that, Miss Diane, is what's scary about that. I think for a lot of people in relationships is that they believe, like you said, that they can love the hell out of somebody.
Yes,
Literally.
literally.
I can love that demonic spirit out of you. God give everybody free will.
Mm,
And they don't even change for God. Some
okay, what
people
makes you
won't
think
even
they don't?
change for themselves. Huh?
Exactly. What makes you think they're gonna
Right.
change for you?
Right. And I feel bad for anybody who believe that, because it's not that you mean to, it's just that you really don't know. You really are so deep in at this point that you
Yeah,
truly believe that you can make a person change,
yeah.
or that you can be their savior. And my thing is, why does your saving have to come at your detriment?
Come on, come on. It shouldn't.
God already did. Jesus already did it.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't have to die.
Oh my
Jesus
God,
already
Miss
died
Diane.
for me.
I love it. I love it. Oh my
Mhm.
God. So
Yes.
again, do you think that saving is a part of that part where you said personalization? Do you think that's similar or mirrors?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yep. and you're standing in, yes, we are standing in the gap for people, but that's in prayer. But not, we're trying to stand in the gap for that person and taking on their mess, their maladaptive behaviors as your own, like it's your fault and it's your responsibility to change it, to fix it. We have a lot of fixers out here. It's a lot. I have a lot of clients that think they are fixers. And they get these
Why though?
projects.
Why do you think people believe that they can fix that? Where does that come from? If you, in your experience, I know you don't know specific, every situation is different, but what is the personality type mainly of a person who thinks they can fix everything?
It's two types. It's one who has that low self-confidence, low self-esteem, and there's some deficits in themselves. And so then it's just easier for me to focus on the deficits in somebody else and fix them. It's that, or it's that person who just feels like, they have to have that control. Some women are very controlling, and they feel like they have to control every scenario. And so they get these projects to control, and that's a form of abuse as well.
Really?
And in the first section, the first part of this podcast, you had mentioned that I believe your I don't know if it was your pastor or someone, you had mentioned two ticks.
It was Prophet Lowe. It was Prophet Lowe. Prophet Lowe says that two ticks without a dog sucking their life out of each other because they don't have anything else to suck out of.
Yeah, and that's what that could look like, because then there's abuse going both ways, and then you have that individual who feels like, I'm just going to stick around because I'm going to fix him.
But you can't fix anybody. I mean, half of the time, the people who want to have so much control can't even control their own situation, though.
Yeah, it's a fallacy.
Why would you believe? Never mind.
It's a fallacy way of thinking.
It is. And it's sad because I know more people who are that way. They believe that they can fix people. And it's like, why do you always need a project? Don't you get tired of projects?
Right. Yeah. Sweep around your own front door before you sweep around somewhere else.
And I really think it's rooted in, if I get a man who's together, right? Or if I get a woman who's together, it really highlights my deficits. And they don't need fixing. They just want love. But because I can't do that, I think fixers are insecure. That's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Their own insecurities, that self-esteem and all of that, confidence level, worth, is low. For sure.
Wow, Miss Diane. My God, Miss Diane. Ooh, child.
Yeah. And then, like we mentioned before, the abuser has that need to oppress, and the fixer has that need to control as well and fix. And so it's
two ticks without a dog.
Two ticks without a dog.
Wow. So it's basically both of them wrong, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. And you see that brokenness attracts brokenness.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what that could look like. And then the last myth, because there could be more myths than the ones that I jotted down, but
these are your personal.
I see on a regular, that you can rescue the friend from the domestic violence situation. You as the friend, that third party that's outside of it, is watching, you're witnessing your friend go through this, and you feel like you can rescue her. Oh man, I not to put out any names or anything, but I have a client who recently was involved in a situation where we talked about it, and she sees now, hindsight, how dangerous that was for her. And, she really put herself in a dangerous situation. She went to the home to confront her friend's husband. Who he could have came out.
Not only did she put herself in a dangerous situation, but she put her friend.
Absolutely. She understands now, but in that moment, she's just looking at trying to save her friend. And I get it. Commendable that you love her so much that you wanted to save her. but we have to go about this in a proper way. You know, talking to the authorities if you have concrete evidence. Even, you know, if you don't have concrete evidence and you just have the thought that, or the idea that something is happening over there, you can ask the police to do a wellness check.
Can I ask a question, Miss Diane? Can you vicarious trauma? We go through it all the time in mental health. Now, one thing I can't hear about in mental health is kids being abused. That's why I never worked at CPS, and I never will. I cannot, because I don't have the stomach for it. I can't even hear. Like, it literally makes me sick. I don't know if I can explain it, but I go numb. Not numb emotionally, but my body reacts to it somatically. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I said that to say, can you talk about the distress and the trauma possibly associated with that? Witnessing that, I feel like that's vicarious trauma.
Yes.
I feel like it could even come with some compassion fatigue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have another client who, similar situation, and she started therapy because of it. She started therapy because she's been witnessing her friend who's married be abused, and she's been trying to be there for that friend and what have you, but she doesn't know how to handle it, and so she's depressed, having nightmares and all of that because of it, thinking that, you know, it's any day now she's going to receive a phone call that he killed her.
Well, let's talk about post-traumatic stress disorder or acute stress disorder. One of the criteria, guys, for those, my non-clinical people, and that's okay, this is why we here, is witnessing or being exposed to danger, even if it's not you personally.
Yes. Yep. And then we see that with children in the homes, witnessing their parents being abused. Yeah. We see a lot of that.
Child,
and then we wonder why the kid is going to school acting out, or, you know, they are withdrawing and they're isolating and all of that, you know, because
hypervigilance almost. Wow, Miss Diane.
Something going on.
Wow. Wow. My God. This is so good, Miss Diane, because I don't even think on the first session we talked about this.
Right.
We talked about this myth, but I don't think we talked about the trauma that's associated with witnessing people go through abuse, because I'll even say hypervigilance. You become even super aware, even if you just hear an argument, you notice yourself like not wanting to hear people argue because you're afraid of, you know, like what's going to happen.
Trigger. Yep. It becomes a trigger. Yes.
Wow, Miss Diane.
Nightmares, you know, children having nightmares and all of that. Even attachment disorders, attachment issues, not wanting to leave their mom's side, you know, because they're unsure of whether or not they're going to come home and then mom's not there or what have you.
Which on the spiritual level can produce a spirit of fear.
Yes.
And you'll find people who they'll grow up and they'll cling to their own children out of fear of what's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Disallowing you to be your unique or genuine self. And what that can look like is, you know, anytime that you say something, oh, that sounds crazy. You sound stupid. And then you start second guessing yourself, you know, to the point of where now you don't even have a voice because anything I say is stupid.